आप एयरटेल से बात
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming in this morning. Sorry, we are slightly delayed only because of very bad traffic. Mr. Pavan Varma is back with us, and the next two lectures are actually going to take off from an idea that he got when one of you asked him an interesting question on the middle class's participation in democracy. So we're looking at politics and the Indian middle class. I'd like to remind you once again that your participation in the class is also being assessed and judged. So please do ask questions and raise your hand to ask those questions. I hope all of you got a chance to read the article that Professor Mishra had sent on Salesforce as well as your WhatsApp groups, just for a little backgrounder on this. And I will hand it over to Mr. Verma for his opening. Okay. For his comments. Incidentally, have any of you ever voted in the election, or are you all too young? So some of you have. You voted at 18. You did vote. Okay, that's good news. Okay, Mr. Verma.
Well, once again, let me say how happy I am to be here. I'm sorry for being late, but the traffic was absolutely awful today, and my car was also hit from behind, which took another 10 minutes. Uh, again, I apologize to keep you waiting. Now, what we are discussing today, and I'll speak for a little while, and then we'll have an interactive session with Amy, is that we are the world's largest democracy in numerical terms. But the quality of our democracy is a matter where considerable thought can be applied. Who are the kind of people who join politics? What is their caliber? Do they have a vision? How much of it is based on genuine conviction and how much on blatant opportunism? Do they have the credentials, even in terms of educational qualifications, to lead a country of the complexity and size of India? It is in this context that I think the middle class and its participation in politics is an important issue. It's part of a syndrome which is a catch-22. Why is politics dirty? Because good people don't join it. Why don't good people join it? Because politics is dirty. So we are caught in a circular logic. Are there ways to break this? And does the participation of those from the middle class necessarily ensure that those who are joining are better contributors to the quality of our democracy? These are assumptions. In the beginning, as we evolved through our freedom movement, people from middle class backgrounds, deeply motivated by an ideological conviction to work for the freedom of India from colonial servitude, they were willing to make the sacrifice of more secure and stable careers. The examples are manifold, but one of the examples that comes to my mind was not only not from the middle class, but from an affluent class. And that was our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, who stories of personal affluence and extravagance on living are probably, you must have read his autobiography and other accounts. He lived in the lap of luxury. But as he came under the influence of Mahatma Gandhi, he was willing to sacrifice his life in an assured milieu of comfort and further success to move into the uncertain world of politics. I will dwell on this question of uncertainty because really it applies to all of you a little later. But I want to say that it was a struggle even then. I cite this only as an example. His father, Motilal Nehru, believed in what was called moderate politics, cooperate with the British, ask for more representation for the Indian people within a British dominion status. Mahatma Gandhi's thinking was radical, where gradually it evolved to complete political freedom, which involved not only the goal of political freedom but included changes in choices of how you live, how you identify with the masses, what priorities are dear to you. So there is this famous story which not, I think, Jawaharlal, but Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, his sister, wrote in a rather nice autobiography where she said that Nehru started wearing khadi. And Motilal Nehru, who used to dress in very privileged three-piece suits, was most annoyed. And annoyed also with Gandhiji for the influence he exercised over his son. And the story goes that Mahatma Gandhi was living at Anand Bhavan for a while. And Nehru began to wear khadi. And the dinner that was served in the Motilal Nehru house was very elaborate, silver, cutlery, and porcelain plates. And Nehru walked in with a tin plate in his hand and asked for his food to be served on that. So Motilal Nehru was both angry and shocked. The next day he walked into the drawing room when everyone was enjoying a glass of port or a whiskey with a rope in his hand. and he put it around his neck and said, I wonder how it feels. वो जमाना जुनून का था। भगत सिंह की तो हम बात करते हैं, बट बहुत से ऐसे लोग युवा थे, lots of young people who were motivated by a higher goal. And so something significant happened that evening. Motilal Nehru walked out of the drawing room in anger, but then from the next day he himself began to wear khaki. He realized his son will not change, so he will change along with him. The point I'm making is that the freedom movement saw a great deal of interaction between the middle class and politics. Mahatma Gandhi himself came from a middle class family, a rather well-to-do middle class family by his standards. But he joined politics, and so did hundreds and thousands of others, many of whom became leaders or who sacrificed their lives in the cause of freedom. After 1947, with the attainment of freedom, gradually, not immediately, gradually politics became the refuge of those who could not do anything else. Which doesn't mean that people of caliber did not join at that time. What it means is that for the middle class, the opportunities of a stable future with a job, hopefully in those days as they were pedestalized, engineer, doctor, and so on and so forth. These became goals where you could guarantee a steady income and guarantee also prosperity within the confines of the opportunities available. And so politics became more a preserve of those who could not become successful otherwise. And as someone famously said, it's the last resort. Politics is the last resort of the scoundrel. There was a great dip in the quality of people in politics. And the idealism and the sense of junoon, that passion for change, now that freedom had been attained, that too came down. The question is, we have seen the nature of our politics. A great deal of money power, a great deal of lack of basic morality, where ideals are sacrificed easily, effortlessly, without any sense of. I'm not tarring every politician. I'm saying the trend where people change parties, which they are vehemently opposed and join them, where people have openly a price on their political loyalty and fidelity, where governments are toppled by money power, where those in power seem to enjoy a greater immunity under the law than those who are opposing them. Now, these are aspects of current day politics. Two other factors come in for the middle class. One is caste. Our politics has become so burdened by the notion of caste that it's an inhibitor and an incentive. If you are in Bihar, for instance, from where I was in Rajya Sabha MP, if, for instance, you are a Yadav, then you have a numerical size, a critical mass that may vote for you on caste lines. But if you are not from a certain caste and wish to join politics on the merit of your conviction, desire, passion to see change, caste becomes an inhibiting factor because people continue to vote along caste lines and all political parties use caste in the calculation of political planning. The second is the dynastic factor, where more and more people of the middle class find that only those who happen to do well are the children of those who have already done well in politics. By the way, there is nothing wrong for a child whose parent is in politics to join politics. My father was a civil servant, and I became one when I joined the foreign service. People from the army, whose children go into the army, there are lawyers whose children become lawyers, and so on and so forth. But there is everything wrong in the assumption that because you are the child of the leader of the political party, you are the de facto heir to being the leader of that party. There is something wrong. It's antithetical to democracy. And when the middle class contemplates joining politics, making a mark for itself, carving out a niche, and being noticed in the area of politics on the basis of merit, this is the factor. कि भाई हम कुछ भी कर लें. I am not from that lineage. So this is the second element. Thirdly, by its very nature, politics has great uncertainties and disproportionate rewards. Do you choose to play a gamble with your life? By a gamble, I mean not in the sense, but do you first ensure that you have a job, you have an income, you have some savings, you get married appropriately, and then laterally join politics, or do you plan to do so directly? If you start younger, the chances are that with your educational background, qualifications, and social background, your abilities to communicate, your knowledge of world affairs may be noticed in any political party, and if you are able to have an important ground connect with people. I can name many leaders who have done that. I mean, when in Bihar, the current Chief Minister, Nitish Kumar, he is an engineer. But he chose to join politics. By contrast, Tejasvi Yadav was 9th class. But he didn't have to make the choice to join politics. He was ordained as the leader the moment he was born. Now, these are choices. I'm not commenting on the merit of leaders. You don't necessarily have to be a postgraduate to be a good politician. I'm just saying that these are choices. Many people with degrees have joined politics because they feel that if they are successful, instead of being in the IAS, they will be actually telling the IAS what to do. Mayawati is a classic example. She was preparing for the civil services exam. When Kashi Rao came to her, she also was from a middle class background. Kashi Rao came to her and said, "You are meant for quote unquote higher things. What you are trying to become today is what these kind of people will report to you tomorrow." And she was a Dalit. People from her caste had suffered for centuries, and they did not have an adequately representative voice in politics. You remember, Kashiram was a visionary. He never became chief minister, but he was a visionary. He saw that ultimately social change will come about when those who are at the receiving end of oppression have the political power to fight for their rights. And by the way, the Dalits on a pan-India basis are the largest caste. Can anyone tell me which state has the largest number of Dalits? Punjab. People don't know. Kashiram's vision was not only to confine himself to UP, but to go beyond. And why I'm quoting this is only to quote the example of Maya. So she was preparing to be a civil service officer in the IAS, district collector, red light on the car, people wielding power, and being subordinate to politicians. Kashiram said, "Become though that person who will tell the IAS officer. Take the risk." And she did. And let me tell you, the path was not easy. Twice she lost. But ultimately she became the chief minister not once but thrice. Now it's another matter that the allegations of corruption against her, which again is something I want to come back to the middle class in politics. When you decide to join politics, and I believe good people should. Today there is an organization called IPAC, which originally was begun by Prashant Kishore. You will be surprised in IPAC there are MBAs from Ahmedabad, doctors, engineers, the top professionals who have decided to use the time to spend in IPAC, some 4,000 of them, as a grooming nursery to prepare them for a career in politics. Many have left lucrative jobs to join IPAC and are working on in constituencies. I know this for a fact. And I'm amazed at their qualifications and the choices they have made. Because, it's easy to romanticize about politics. But as someone said it in a different context, ये इश्क नहीं आसान, बस इतना समझ लीजिए एक आग का दरिया है और डूब के जाए. So it's not as if the rewards are immediately assured, but it gives you a national platform to be heard about what you believe needs to change, what needs to be rectified, and what needs to be erased from past practices and how we reconstruct our future. When I was in foreign service and I resigned to join politics, I was then ambassador in Bhutan. Maybe you could tell me when to stop so that we.
Another
5 minutes?
no, 5 minutes.
I was ambassador in Bhutan. It's a truly beautiful country, extremely important to us strategically, being the buffer zone between India and China. Uh, my residence as ambassador in their house was in 70 acres, the largest residence abroad in our diplomatic life. I had a private golf course, a maintenance staff of the course of 72 people. It was pretty well paid as well. So now we have a parity with the UN. When I decided to resign, uh, it was because I was feeling stifled in the bureaucracy. In other words, I wanted a stage where I could speak without always being afraid that I am infringing the rules of conduct of being a bureaucratic servant rather than in public life. And I still remember that time when I began that morning with a dictation to my private secretary, which he thought was a dispatch to the foreign secretary, and it actually was my resignation letter. His pen fell from his hands. He stood up, he said, "Sir," I said, "Yeah, the decision is made," and send it by diplomatic bag, by fax, by email, he sent it off. And I walked outside and I looked at the sky and I said, "I'm a full-blooded man." Not because I didn't enjoy diplomacy, not because I didn't enjoy my career. There was a genuine sense in my mind to be able to get a larger platform to speak about what I think is wrong. I'm not saying I succeeded, but certainly I have the fulfillment that I contributed. And it was a gamble. The point I'm making is that your decision to join politics can have disproportionate rewards, but they are not guaranteed. Like a fixed pay, it can be guaranteed in an ordinary job as a cog in somebody else's wheel. When you lead a successful, nondescript, middle class life. But the best and brightest choose that instead of the risk and gamble of politics. But politics needs people who don't need to join politics as a matter of necessity because they have no other opportunity, but do so as a matter of choice. And when I resigned, I don't, weaving in some personal example, I had no guarantee that I had decided to join at that time, in 2012, Nitish Kumar in Bihar, not only because of the fact that I admired him, at that time his reputation was totally different. He could have been the future prime minister. His personal rectitude, his qualifications, scrupulously honest. Administratively, he was called Sushasan Babu. He's changing Bihar. And my personal experience with him was that when he came to Bhutan on an official visit, for the 1 hour journey where the airport is, which is in Paro, to Thimphu, the capital of Bhutan, unlike other VVIPs, and I used to receive a cabinet minister almost every second, third day. Mr. Nitish Kumar spoke to me about 4 or 5 of my books in detail. So I was also impressed by the fact of his knowledge beyond merely the immediate subject or of politics. Anyway, I reached Patna on the date he had given me in the same month that I resigned, and there was no one to receive me. And I told myself that Ambassador Varma, अब ambassador तो रहे नहीं, जमीन पे आओ, टैक्सी लो और जाओ. और फिर जब समय दिया है तो पहुंचो. But as it so happened, after 5 minutes, his office called. There was a mix-up about my flight. They were there to receive me. I was taken, treated very well. And on the day when I met him, which was, I think, that day itself, that day, against my wishes, and I argued against it for 10 minutes, he said, I want you to be an advisor to me with cabinet. But none of this was assured when I actually resigned. We had not even talked about it. I said, I just want to help. And from there on, later, 2 years later, I went to Rajya. What I'm saying to you is, politics is an uncertain field, but politics has a sense of reward, of having contributed to nation building, of having made a mark beyond the normal ambit of conventional ambition. And India today needs good people. When I say good, I don't say every middle class person is good. There are many things where we have to look into the mirror. We spoke about it last time. Our personal sense of integrity, our fidelity to principles, our susceptibility to communalism. The middle class, by the way, so long as its interests are ensured, can be highly undemocratic and highly supportive of a despotic messiah. Don't forget, Hitler came to power through a democratic election. And his biggest supporter was the German middle class. And they were witnesses and participants in the extermination of 5.5 million Jews. The extermination of all political opponents, so long as he was building autobahns, highways, talking of economic development, nationalism, purity of the German race, the middle class was cooperative. So the middle class was also look into the mirror and say, if I join politics, and I should, those of us who can, what is the kind of India I want to see tomorrow? What is the change I can make? And then there is no obstacle. For instance, a very small caste called the Kayas, of which I am one. It's not Brahmins, it's not Thakur, it's not Rajput, it's not Dalits, it's not Yadavs. Our first president was the Kayas, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. He had a lucrative, very lucrative legal practice. He gave it up to be with Mahatma Gandhi to serve him on legal services and the social survey he was doing in Champaran. His family was most unhappy by his choice because he had the future ahead of him. The usual process, lawyer, high court judge, he chose to do this, but by doing this, he became the president. Lal Bahadur Shastri was a caste. And Jayaprakash Narayan, who never accepted political office but joined politics with the idea of change, led to the opposition against the emergency as the iconic figure that bound the entire middle class and the common person. He was a caste. So caste is a factor but not an ultimate barrier. You have to become. Anna Hazare, before the whole thing sort of became politicized. When he started his campaign, India Against Corruption, it was electrifying. Middle class people joined in their thousands, lakhs. And there have been examples of middle class solidarity in issues beyond their immediate ken of interest. The first case was of Jessica, 1997. Here is a rich man's son who comes and shoots a woman because she doesn't give him a drink. And the judge releases him. The whole outrage against this obviously wrong judgment was led by the middle class. Resident welfare associations and had candlelight vigils, marches, until the matter did go to High Court and he was given imprisonment for life. Do you all recall the Nirbhay case? 2012. It was the middle class who came out against the sheer brutality and barbarism and the safety of women in the city. So, there are issues on which the middle class has gathered. And I believe, frankly, these are issues which pertain to the middle class. Jessica Lal was from the middle class. Nirbhaya, in her own way, was in the middle. What's something amusing you? Perhaps you have a permanent smile on your face. So, these were people who were from the middle class. And so you identified with them. Women are raped in the countryside literally every 15 minutes in this country. It doesn't immediately strike a chord with the middle class. But when it's one of your own, Jessica Lal, living in a residential colony where some of us have lived, Safdarjung or wherever, Oscars. The middle class has the capacity to make a difference. Can it do it in a more organized manner? And can it do it beyond merely fighting for its own interests, but for the interests of the country as a whole, with a view to making a change to make India a better place to live in? That is the challenge. And I'll end here and ask to continue the conversation with me.
I think many of you may have been kids when the Jessica Lal murder happened. How many of you heard of that case, by the way? Do you know who Jessica Lal was? She was a model. You not heard of this case? Although, I mean, that's no reason to not hear about it if you weren't born then. It's like our independence happened. Jessica Lal was a model. She was serving drinks at a nightclub in Delhi. She was shot in front of a big room full of people. There were so many witnesses in that case by a politician's son. And movies were made on it, by the way, because maybe that is how you connect to it. And incidentally, the news channel that started the candlelit vigils and the campaign to punish her killers was NDTV. We did it at that time. And it was a big thing. And in my class, by the way, on the media and its influence, this is one of the examples I've cited. If well, I don't think your class has dealt with it yet, Lodi Road has, so I'll come to that. Nirbhaya was another important one, by the way, yes. It was, I covered those protests, and it was people your age, with their mothers, with their fathers, siblings, who came out on their own. They were not affiliated to any party. But they came out and they protested and they demanded change, and Parliament was forced to change the rape laws after that. It's a debate whether that has actually worked in deterring these crimes from taking place, whether those were necessarily good laws, but it did force Parliament to sit up and take notice. So what you said about the power of the middle class in protest is very important. Incidentally, how many of you in this room would ever consider a career in politics? So some of you would. Can you tell us why? What is it about politics that would interest you?
One is the change that we can bring through politics is much wider and deeper than we can have in any other field. And other is the issue that so one is the change that we can bring in the society, and it is a much more deeper change than we can bring rather than in being in any other field. Other aspect of joining politics is why not to join politics? It affects our everyday choices. It affects our be it the price rises, be it the conflicts, and when we believe sitting in our television, watching, reading newspapers, watching television, we think, oh, this should be done like this, or why did they make such kind of policy? They could have done with it. We always complain, why don't we join politics and change it? So, as a, why should I just complain and be a passive recipient of the choices which are being made for me rather than me joining politics and making my own choices? So, that is one of the
That's a
reasons.
good reason. Who else had raised their hand? Yeah, well, we'll just pass the mic to your classmate. Why would you join politics?
I would like to join politics because I don't only want to change people, not to change myself. Also, I want to change all the people. By changing myself, nothing will change. I know this. But by changing the thinking and perception of the people around me, everything will be changed. And I would like to tell I admired NDTV before Adani take over NDTV.
So did I.
Yeah, that so and politics is now अगर सब अच्छे लोग ही पॉलिटिक्स छोड़ देंगे और मिडिल क्लास जो कि पार्टिसिपेट कर नहीं सकता बट दे डिस्कस वेरी मच कि ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है वैसा क्यों हो रहा
बट
है
जो पवन जी ने बताया आपको कि पॉलिटिक्स एक डिफिकल्ट लाइन भी है, राइट? खासकर अगर आप ऑपोजिशन पार्टी में होंगे, यू कैन सी दैट आज ही ईडी की खबर सुन रहे हैं कि इसको बुलाया, उसको रेड किया, ये हो रहा है. That doesn't deter you, or the other obstacles, dynasty, caste, etc. मतलब आपको उसे डर नहीं लगता कि पता नहीं पॉलिटिक्स में कर पाऊंगा नहीं कर पाऊंगा?
challenges are everywhere any profession you go you have to face the challenges मैम पढ़ना लिखना भी जो भी आप कर रहे हो उसमें भी challenges face करनी है आपको पड़ेंगे so in the politics भी same ही है but उसमें challenges मैम और भी worse हो सकते हैं क्योंकि आपके लाइफ का भी सवाल हो सकता है थ्रेट्स होते हैं उसमें काफी बट ये सेफ होता है प्रोफेशन दैट वी आर वर्किंग इन जैसे सैलरी जॉब हो गई जिसमें लोग इसलिए सेफ महसूस करते हैं क्योंकि उनको किसी को थ्रेट नहीं होता दैट्स व्हाई नाउ मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल डोंट वांट टू गो इन पॉलिटिक्स बिकॉज़ दे से इट इज वेरी डर्टी एंड व्हाई दे से इट इज वेरी डर्टी दैट दे ऑल नो कि उसमें लाइफ के थ्रेट्स होते हैं सोशल जो भी चीजें होती हैं उनको पता होता है कि समाज क्या सोचेगा ये सारी चीजें होती हैं बट अगर आपको जॉब चाहिए उसमें क्या समाज सोचेगा बस बता दो कि जॉब लग गई सब कुछ है अच्छी जॉब वो सिविल सर्विस में जॉब लग गई सब कुछ है बस यही है
Every Indian parents do.
या तो वो नहीं सोचते ना कि अपने बाहर
Why they don't?
So who here would never consider a career in politics and why? Come on, let's be honest. Speak up, everybody. बताइए. Please pass on the mic. Very good. Why wouldn't you? Just push it out.
Like now it's not about that, I would never consider. Like before I was working in News 24. So like I have been News 24, like in Noida. So I have covered like protest, Andolan and farmer protest also. So there I have seen like many things like which were very worse. And there was a political pressure also like you don't like cover that, you
This
don't
is Anuradha Prasad.
yeah, ma'am. Like you don't cover that, and as a like as I was a working as a reporter, so like wherever we go to the like
So we've seen politicians up close. But why would you be reluctant to consider a career in the media? I mean, sorry, in politics.
because of the threat.
Yes, sir. All this.
Like ma'am,
Are you get why is it why plus security? Z plus security. आप दिल्ली के बंगले देखिए,
But sir,
majority are occupied by politicians.
आप सिक्योरिटी की थ्रेट बात करो
like, ma'am, it's not about the security threat. It's about the inner people. Like, if we are working in a politics,
ED or life threat to life or ED.
ma'am, it can depend upon the person or the inner channel they are talking with the rules.
Okay, so you're saying it's just you feel it's too risky a profession.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, anybody else? Any of the women in this room? Yes, please. Ma'am, so as a woman, like you are also a diplomat, so it's like you have a course of path that you followed to become a politician. But like at the local level, it's very difficult for a female contender to join politics. Like it's like either you face you are a major victim there. You face backlash on every opinion of yours. So how a woman should be guided in these type of
Tell me one thing, in other areas, not politics, sometimes are not women the facing the brunt of being a minority often, or of glass ceilings, or of male biases.
in the public eye. So like, but we have had women politicians, many of whom are self-made. I mean, if you look at Mamata Banerjee, there is no dynasty there, for example. You know, even Mayawati, and they've had very tough lives. I think the point he's making is that as women, we face challenges in whatever profession we may go into. And that's a fact, whether it's the media, whether it's entertainment, publishing, anything. Maybe we perceive politics to be more difficult. But that doesn't mean that women aren't doing that. It's very often a male-dominated society. Wherever we go, we have to find our way to manipulate. And some of our best, if you look at political parties today, some of the best spokespersons, some of the most outspoken members of parliament are women. Not that it's easy for them, but it isn't easy for a lot of
Some
people.
of the best anchors.
I come back to you. I have a question for you because one of the other things that happened as a result of middle class mobilization in a way was the rise of the Aam Aadmi Party 10 years ago. You had this India against corruption movement. You had a media narrative that was built around them, and the Aam came from nowhere, right? It was a party that was basically, of someone like Arvind Kejriwal, bureaucratic background, uh, and you had all these professionals who suddenly became a part of art. That was very much a middle class movement too, wasn't it? And still, and actually remains now a national challenge even to the BJP.
That's true. One of the middle class success stories to begin with was the Aam Aadmi Party, which began on one plank of corruption, the demand for a Lokpal bill, the involvement of Anna Hazare, and the Aam Aadmi Party grew in an organic fashion largely through middle class people. And in the first election in Delhi, they did surprisingly well, although in that election they formed a government in collaboration with the Congress. Subsequently, they've been winning absolute majorities. So the Aam Aadmi Party was, and I'm telling you, see, politics is an organized structure. You have the BJP, you have the Congress, you have TMC in West Bengal, you have DMK in Tamil Nadu. But there is always the possibility of an outsider. Take France. Between the established left of center, right and extreme right parties, one man called Macron, Emmanuel Macron. He came out of nowhere, literally, if you recall him. And he started a movement by which it took 3 years. One advantage the middle class has, which was not there earlier, and that is instant communication. What used to take longer to convey today is done instantaneously, both by messaging and visually. Every district of India, I'm surprised, has one or two people who shoot videos from their phones. It's a democratization of the media. They are from lower middle class background. They upload that video and are paid for the number of likes or the number of hits. So, communication, including the exponential growth of the television in your bedroom, the smartphone, all of these are a matter of help for anyone with the right idea. So, earlier, if the constraint was only caste, for instance, today, at least Kejriwal proved that he could transcend it by the strength of his idea and the ability of communication. So that is a great advantage.
Many of the ARC volunteers, because I have covered the ARC sort of, I've seen it from the Anna Hazare movement till now. Many of the people who joined ARC were people like you guys. You know, they were just professionals. They were people who were NRIs also, who quit their jobs in the US or took a sabbatical for a year and they came to just volunteer and campaign for the party. So they were, people like us who decided that politics needs a change and we need to do something different, and it became a phenomenon. Today, AAP is a national party. We would never have imagined, 10 years ago that it would be in power in Delhi and Punjab and have made some inroads in other states through vote share, etc. So that's really something that's quite remarkable. But you said something about educational qualifications in your talk. How much do educational qualifications matter in Indian politics? Because there's a lot of debate about that. Do you necessarily need to be, a 12th pass or a graduate to be a good politician in India, given our realities?
See, we live in a complex world where issues are complex. Decisions have to be made between choices where a certain level of education matters. It cannot be made a mandatory requirement. There was a move to do that in Rajasthan for the Panchayat elections. And I was against it. Because very often people don't have the opportunity to have a graduate degree. But if you are uneducated because you are unable to study for your exams or clear them or have failed, I believe it's a disqualification for your ability to be able to make decisions of complex issues in today's dynamically changing world. Then you are relying only on primeval factors like caste or lineage or dynasty. That is the problem. So, I think that in a country like India, where incidentally we still have the largest number of people in the world, we produce the largest number of doctors and engineers, and we have the largest number of people who can't read and write. It's a reducing number. It's come down. Literacy has gone. But basic literacy. How many dropouts from school after the 6th or 8th class? I can't debar them from politics. But I can debar that person who had every opportunity, every facility to study more. No shortage of money, no compulsion, but had no interest.
How do you decide what is the qualification?
I would not make it mandatory that you have to be a postgraduate. But I believe a graduate degree in our country today is not a cutoff. You can be exceptionally worldly wise, rooted to the ground with the right experience and exposure to devise policies, even if you don't have a higher degree. I've seen such people. Zameen se jude. I mean, if I were to ask you at random on a survey, in Bihar we did one survey, what is the biggest problem facing people in the countryside? To our surprise, the answer was nalis. You know, drainage. These get blocked. Roads have encroached. It rains in the north of Bihar heavily. Waterlogging, malaria as a consequence. Now, unless you are rooted to the ground, you don't know. यहाँ दिल्ली में, Delhi will pardon me for it. Prime time debates are going on in something else. What is the real issue on the ground, with few exceptions where reporters actually, is totally different. तो आप दिल्ली में या मुंबई में पढ़ के, you may not know the ground there. But if you make the effort to know, perhaps your abilities to find solutions to them will be better if you have a basic education. Now, Lalu Yadav made his wife Rabdi Devi. I have nothing against Rabdi Devi or a woman. But it was not based on educational qualification or merit. It was entirely based on a dynastic principle that if I go to jail, let my wife become. Now, sometimes it has happened. When I remember it was in I.K. Gujral's time, there was a reservation for women in mandatory reservation in panchayats. So the first women who were elected, quote unquote, were proxies of men, husbands, brothers, fathers. The second set of women who were elected said, "Not budget. Oh, these are our priorities to health." So they began to be more assertive and less under the influence of those whom they were proxies of. The third election, they had become more or less the boss. Similarly, earlier men told women, this is how we will vote and for this candidate. Today, women are making their own choices. So, I am saying that with an increasingly literate population, and if not literate, exposed to the news population, what this country is really seeking for is a charismatic leader who has a new vision for this country. Greater morality, greater respect for people from all denominations, greater inclusion, grassroots development and corporate development, less money power. When you see how Parliament functions, what do you all feel? Why are the days gone when you used to have a debate with substance, with arguments, with repartee, with wit, and good fortune to know Atal Bihari Vajpayee very well. I translated his poems into English on his request. That sense of humor, that ability to lead a debate in parliament, classic speech, go to the net and read his speech when his government fell by one vote in 1998. So these were leaders. And look at what parliament has become today. But don't you, as the middle class, something in you rebels? कि भाई the world's largest democracy तो है, but quality क्या है? And again, I give you a personal example. I think I mentioned to you last time. I'm just giving an example where the risks and the certainty. Arun Jaitley and I were in the same school in St. Xavier's, same class. In the university, he went to Shriram, I went to St. Stephen's. We both became president, both were debaters. We met at least 40 times in the year debating against each other. We were good friends. After that, we joined law together. After that, I took the exam for the foreign service. He went to jail in the emergency. But I did well enough in the foreign service. He became the finance minister of India and the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha. When you were in jail during the emergency for the 2.5 years until the emergency was removed, they did not see one ray of hope that this fractious opposition, all rights taken away, including that of legal redressal. तो भाई कुछ तो sacrifice मांगता है ना. But look at the reward. I'm not saying it's guaranteed in every case. He rose in politics. At one time, we became members of parliament at the same time. So, I'm saying that India is looking for that one person. And by the way, if you have some financial guarantee or safety, or रहने की जगह कुछ income, family से ही हो, don't be ashamed of it. That's your insurance factor. And then with that, politics, for people who are joining it not for the lack of any other option, but because they want to make a change. Today is one occasion where the middle class needs to think and breathe. Because if success is what you are after, let's say it's success or power. People do medicine and join the IILs. Why? Power. People do engineering, join the IILs. Why? Power. If that is what you are looking for, if you are looking for fame, if you are looking for success, I'm not saying it's guaranteed. Politics is one of the professions where people who are there to contribute, it's an option you should think of. And you have to start early. You can come in there. And that's why I gave the example of IPAC, which incidentally has some young people with the best professional qualifications who have joined. They say we want to join politics and we want to learn the ABC of it. And remember one thing, which is in favor of the middle class today. Politics today has changed very substantially. It is data driven. The whole thing, I can show you some examples. You know, you will have a constituency. And you can have voting patterns of the last 5 general elections. And individual candidates and support, backed by a survey of popularity. And the whole matrix creates a algorithm. And you can even decide data driven who is likely to win from a particular constituency and why. Data driven. In the organization that I work with and want to work with in a bigger way when you become a political party, we have a data center in Hyderabad which does a survey every day, 365 years a day in every state of India. We have it on our fingertips, an extremely scientific survey, vetted and approved by some of the best commentators on what is a reliable survey. It's all data driven. That's where your strength lies.
Okay, I'm going to thank Mr. Varma at this point today because there is going to be a part 2 of this when we come back, which will be completely based on your questions. So please do prepare like we did last time. You guys asked some very good
And some
questions.
of the ladies,
Yeah, let's see
I
some.
have the reservation over here.
उसके बिना भी सवाल. But 2 other things, Rahul sir will brief you, but you are going to get an assignment based on the classes that we've had with Mr. Varma so far. And if you've not been paying attention, then good luck to you, because it is not an easy assignment and it will require for you to have paid some attention in these classes. So have fun. We will see you again very soon. Thank you. Thank you.